Coming up tonight on Student News, the last decade has seen an explosion of technological advances and near global use of the internet for connecting with others.
With an all-teen roundtable discussion and expert interviews, we will look at how the use of social media for personal and group connections has affected how we build relationships and interact with others. It's January 23rd, 2012, and Student News starts right now. Good evening, I'm Joshua Wolfson.
And I'm Javon Robinson-Heides. Welcome back to Student News. Over the last 10 years, the internet has moved away from simply being a store of information and has become a place where people socialize with their friends or colleagues, or in many cases, people they've never met before. Thus, the internet has become a place where you can not only interact with people you know in the real world, but you can also start or carry on relationships with people you've never seen in person. This phenomenon has led to the creation of numerous online communities in the form of forums, blogs, and sites intended for building or broadening human relationships. Sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are most commonly used for keeping in touch or reacquiring lost contacts, while abundant dating sites focus on the developing new relationships. In his study of more than 2,000 students, Adam Joinson of the University of Bath discovered that people using Facebook primarily for social searching, the process of further investigating people they have met offline, followed by social browsing, the use of the site to meet someone online. Facebook users are unlikely to meet their Facebook friends in real life or later on. By contrast, people who use dating and relationship sites are more likely to use those sites as a way of establishing relationships that are difficult to begin in person. There are thousands of dating sites online, including the commonly known open sites such as Match.com and eHarmony.com, as well as the more recent explosion in dating sites that appeal to specific audience. Sites such as SeniorPeopleMeet.com or InterracialCouples.com bring together members of similar demographic, while other sites appeal to those looking for specific levels of commitment, from monogamous, lasting marriages to polygamous relationships and one-night affairs.
Not only are more communities popping up on the internet to satisfy every need or desire, but there also seems to be a marked difference between how people behave and present themselves in the real world and how they interact with others or present themselves in social media. These new behaviors have been the focus of a large amount of media scrutiny over the last few years, especially focused on teens. The criminalization in some states of teens taking part in the act that adults have dubbed sexting is just one example of the numerous concerns and attacks leveled against the online world by specialists, parent groups, and the media. These groups also cite cyberbullying as evidence of the dangers of social media to teens, along with teens' tendency to overlook the potential long-term and widespread damage that can result from oversharing personal details on social networks. This month, however, New York Times health columnist Dr. Perry Klass took a different view. Her January 9th column read, in part, quote, "More than 100 years ago, when the telephone was introduced, there was some hand-wringing over the social dangers that this new technology posed. Increased sexual aggression and damaged human relationships. It was going to bring down our society," said Dr. Megan Moreno, a specialist in adolescent medicine at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. "Men would be calling women and making lascivious comments, and women would be so vulnerable, and we'd never have civilized conversations again." In other words, the telephone provoked many of the same worries that more recently have been expressed about online social media. When a new technology comes out that is something so important, there is this initial alarmist reaction, Dr. Moreno said. The column went on to explain that social networking and online dating sites are inherently neutral, simply tools through which either positive or negative interactions can occur. It does seem clear, however, that people share more information about themselves when they are online than they do when they are interacting in the real world. Twitter, with a 140-character limit on all posts, has become known as a site where users post information about whatever they are doing in that moment, such as eating breakfast, going to work, and sharing other similar minutiae of life. Individuals can also use the internet to present themselves as someone else, or as having characteristics that are quite different than how they actually are.
What do these new technological advances and these new forms of connection mean for the quality of a person-to-person relationships? Is there a fundamental difference in human connection over the internet as opposed to in-person interactions?
To get teens' opinions on the subject and try to answer these questions, I sat down with some Amherst Regional High School students to talk about this. Take a look.
I believe that a real friendship means that someone cares for the other person, that you'll look out for them. And if they're having an issue, you'll talk to them, you'll help work them through it. And online, I feel like that's not quite the case. I feel if you're just a friend with someone online, it's just you sometimes care about what they say. You don't really look out for them sometimes.
And I think for online at least, that it really comes down to just knowing someone, seeing them in the hall. You know, I'm definitely friends on Facebook with people who I never talk to, maybe in a week or even a month.
I also think that it's really easy to be friends with people on Facebook, whereas friendships in real life require effort and that you have to invest in a friendship, and in Facebook you don't really. It's just sort of like typing stuff and reading stuff on a computer screen.
I think friendship is a lot about being comfortable around somebody and being able to enjoy yourself around them, which is, you know, it's possible to be uncomfortable with someone talking to them online. So I think you can sort of tell if you're friends with someone by talking to them on Facebook, maybe. But obviously the word friend on Facebook does not mean what it means in reality.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that friendships are definitely based in honest communication, and sometimes that can get tainted in the world of Facebook or other social media. But in the end, I think that if it continues to be found, rooted in honest communication, then it can continue to be a successful friendship.
And it also seems like on Facebook, a lot of the communication that goes on is just sort of snippets of conversations and not really like in-depth communication or connection between people.
I'd argue that the snippets are important, though, in a friendship, to be able to just chat with someone for a little while and then enjoy it and then go do something else for a while. I think obviously not an entire friendship can be built on little snippets you have on Facebook, but they're definitely part of a real friendship.
And also, when it comes to Facebook, you know, Facebook uses the word friend to represent friendships, but they could have easily have used like Facebook-E, or you know how like Twitter uses tweets. They don't use messages, they use tweets. So by choosing friend, Facebook maybe, you know, instead of turning it into we own, you know, Facebook and it has all these little quirks that are Facebook, they kind of just turned it into a way that friends can meet and talk online. And I think people have taken it to friend meaning I know you, I should have access to, you know, everything you want to say on the internet.
Do you think Facebook has redefined the term friend?
Not necessarily in real life, but they've definitely made something that's not just a friendship. They've made a new term that they haven't termed yet, I think.
I'm the kind of person who doesn't have that many really close friends. So, I mean, to me, a friendship is like it's a long-lasting, very big investment. And I think other people, you know, it's different for every person, and some people sort of invest maybe a bit less in each friend, but they have more. I think that there's a spectrum, and I'm at one end, and some people are at the other end, and that Facebook is just sort of, you know, it takes it to a different level.
Create relationships on Facebook, generally a bad idea. If you haven't talked to the person in real life, you might be able to connect with them online. Doesn't mean you'll be able to walk up to them in reality and you know, hang out like normal people. and I think being in someone else's physical presence is an important part of a friendship. So, you know, it's possible to have it the other way around, where you're friends with someone in real life, you don't talk to them at all online because maybe they don't have a Facebook or they just don't use it that much. But when it's vice versa, it's not as fulfilling.
Do you think that it improves friendships in some ways, or?
Well, I'm never more than a Wi-Fi connection away from any of my friends. I can ask them for anything, anytime. in that sense, I guess it's makes things easier, but not emotionally any closer. And when you reconnect with people you haven't talked with in a while in real life, on Facebook, you can easily fall into the trap of like thinking that you're getting along with this person really well, and you're like, oh, we're friends again. We stay up chatting every night. It's it's going really well. But then you see them in person. It's like, no, it hasn't really helped you at all establish a real physical friendship with someone. And so I think, especially if you've moved, that's happened to me too. I friended my old friends from California. We've had a few conversations, but I don't think if I saw them again, it would have helped a bit in terms of getting to know them as a person more.
It's interesting how Facebook kind of makes two sides to a friendship. I mean, there's definitely two worlds to a friendship.
I mean, definitely sometimes, yeah. Another example of when it doesn't work is over this past summer, I was talking to someone, and like we chatted and we started chatting a lot over the summer, but then when we actually saw each other, we were like, this is really awkward. And it's like hard to hold a conversation in real life because you're just used to being able to like think for a moment and just like sit there and go do something else and then come back. And if you're in real life, you can't get up and go walk away to read the news and then come back and say something more.
I find like a lot of parts of Facebook are like standing in a crowded room of people where there's a lot of people you may or may not usually talk to around, but you're bored, so you say something to all of them anyway. And I think that's it's a similar kind of communication, just like being at a social gathering where the point is to go and be social with people you don't really know. Facebook is sort of like that, where you can say anything to anybody, but it doesn't really mean anything because you're a different person at that party than you are when you're hanging out with a friend alone. And so I think what you post on Facebook or how you interact with the Facebook community or whatever is a lot like sort of your public self, whereas but in a private chat conversation, however, that's almost the same thing as just having a one-on-one, casual conversation with someone else in reality. So I'd say the one fell swoop of communicating with all your friends, no one really interprets that to be the same thing as having a real conversation with friends, because they know it's a public place.
It gets pretty tricky when people who are accustomed to kind of communicating in this like private life can kind of feel so comfortable that they feel comfortable saying things they might not say in their public life and hurting people and hurting themselves as well. I mean, they're assuming this identity that may not be their own, and that kind of brings in another issue of cyberbullying.
That's called being bad at Facebook.
Yeah, or just maybe taking advantage of such a useful resource that can just make communication so much quicker.
I definitely feel that and see that too. Some people, they kind of use Facebook as a way to share inside jokes. And when you post on your wall, I highly doubt you're thinking about your 250 to 1,500 friends who are going to see that. People who are friends with their parents. Oh, my parents are on. That's cool. They know their parents are on there, but are they thinking about the girl down the block who wasn't invited to the party last night? It's kind of like you see posts that you either don't understand or realize they're totally not directed at you, and you're like, this is on 200 people's walls. Everyone can see this, basically.
Maybe it's just me, but I don't feel like when I'm on Facebook or something, I don't feel like I'm anonymous. Like, I realize that whatever I say, whatever I post, a bunch of people will see. But that doesn't mean I will act the same way as I do in real life. Like, sometimes I will post something that I was like, oh, hey, this is funny. I bet other people think this is funny too. But I wouldn't go running around holding up a poster to everybody looking at this, and they wouldn't be like, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm with Jibbin on this one. I don't really feel anonymous when I'm on Facebook. To make the reference to being in a room full of people again, sometimes I do act like a very public person in real life. I talk loudly and to people I wouldn't always talk to, and that's sort of the personality I seem to embody online, where I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna say this and people are gonna see it, but that's okay because I'd say this anyway. I usually do a check, like would I say this to someone in real life?
I definitely
Yeah.
I definitely self-censor, I guess, as well. You know, I'd say I'm probably even more private than on Facebook than I am in real life as well. I'm much more outgoing, I guess, in real life because I'm very conscious of everything that I'm posting could be seen by so many people.
You know, I have had the experience where I walk into like a classroom and someone's like, "Did you see what so-and-so posted on their profile last night?" And I'm thinking, for one thing, yes, I did see that, and it was funny, and we're going to talk about that now. But then two, when we start using real life to talk about Facebook and not Facebook to talk about real life, that's when you're spending too much time on Facebook, and then I tend to tone it down from there.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna add that sometimes it works the other way. Like I feel Facebook sort of edging into my life where I haven't really asked for it. Like for example, when I was accepted to college, someone posted it on Facebook, and the next day I walked into school, and before I knew it, like everyone was coming up to me, and they all knew. And they were saying congratulations, and I was like, I don't even know you. Like how did you find out? And then I'm like, oh, of course. Like there's this whole world that people are hooked up to, and that's how they know. It's just sort of that was weird for me.
I definitely think it adds something to, definitely a sense of community. Like the past 2 years, I've noticed this at least, is all of my classes have a Facebook page. We're not just spending an hour a day together, we're spending an hour a day and being able to talk about anything that happens in class. It definitely does add a stronger connection to the people in the class than just, I'm in class with you.
The thing is, like, I think that Facebook can be a supplement to, normal face-to-face communications, but at the same time, I find myself going through my day and everyone around me is just sort of on their phones or, plugged into their laptops. And I think that there is a danger of having, social media sort of take over. And I think that wouldn't be good. And, I think that it's really important to maintain a sense of physical community as well. And who knows where it's going to go, but.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. There's no way Facebook could, I think, ever make up for physical contact or face-to-face communication with someone. Video calling, sure, but it's not the same. There is a difference between it, and I don't think we ever will breach that difference.
I think in high school, it's like many teenagers are just trying to find ways to identify the commonalities between each other.
Thanks to the roundtable participants for sitting down with us. Now to find out more about social media is affecting our relationships, Student News executive producer Jesse Chasen-Tabor sat down with UMass Communications professor Joel Sachs and Erica Schar. Take a look.
The internet is really kind of fundamentally just a medium. I don't think it really changes human behavior in an ultra dramatic way. Humans will communicate and will find a form to do that, and we always have, of course. But the internet, so in a lot of ways the internet just kind of, changes the venue or the means by which we communicate, but doesn't necessarily radically alter the way that we communicate or, the driving forces behind that communication. Having said that, though, it does, of course, have some unique properties. And so, the idea of networking being no longer bounded by space and time, that's a pretty, far-reaching implication of internet communication. And so I do think, a lot of times one of the real gratifications is to be able to reach people and kind of, establish networks, re-establish networks, reach people who are friends of friends, right, and have kind of, networks kind of established in concentric circles out from the individual. And that, I do think the technology obviously facilitates that, because it's a series of networked computers, and so and because so many people are indeed online now, it seems that that tendency to connect kind of grows, and it allows people to not be bounded by the here and now.
When we think about friends on the network, on Facebook, for example, what is the nature of the kind of talk that we engage in? And it's also the question of when I see you and I say, how you doing, and you're having a schmooze with people. You don't talk about those things generally, like I'm having a really hard time, I can't pay my bills, I'm scared about college, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm working 2 to 3 jobs. You don't talk about those things.
Most of the social science research literature really suggests that for most teens, social networking sites are used to kind of reinforce existing friendships. And so the notion that, somehow we're undermining quality friendships or quality relationships is not really borne out by most of the research studies. There are exceptions to the rule. Where it becomes an exception is maybe with, what researchers might term excessive or problematic internet use, which mostly has to do with how much time you spend online. And just like any kind of regularity in social life, if someone's doing too much of it, it's probably not healthy.
I spent the last month looking at the campaigns for free public higher education around the world. And found that in Chile in particular, there's an amazing amount of YouTube videos that show a very, very vibrant culture of resistance, culture of solidarity among young people. So for example, one of the high points of the collection of videos about the popular movement in Chile for free public higher education, which has been going on in a massive way for the last year to 2 years. There is, young people did about 6 months ago a performance of Michael Jackson's Thriller video, 3,000 people at the presidential palace in Santiago, going through the whole video in this way of saying to the president, we are this very, very gesturing monster force that wants free public higher education. So it becomes a force for a movement reflecting the positive, powerful, muscle and creative, loving spirit.
Adolescence has always been a period that's really marked by emerging identities and trying on of different identities and kind of sorting out who you are, which may change on a day-to-day basis, frankly, or a week-by-week basis. And that's part of that experimentation and self-exploration is very much a part of adolescence and has been before social networking sites were around. So again, I think of it, mainly as a platform for the expression of different identities. What's different, I think, is the audience. The audience is different because it's potentially quite larger. So maybe in the past, while you're trying out these different identities, it wouldn't have this ripple effect that it may now, where so much of daily life now for young people and not so young people as well is kind of a public performance because of the size of the people who could potentially read your post or see your text or whatever it might be. And so that's changed a bit. Maybe that makes it feel like it's occurring on a wider stage, but generally I think the tendency to explore one's identity is a very healthy and common part of adolescence.
The It Gets Better campaign, if you're familiar with that, where gay students and allies have come out and told their stories, borne witness to what their experiences are, and everybody from the president on down has added their testimonies so that it becomes a very important vehicle for outsider, marginalized populations. And those things become viral in some sense, not viral perhaps in millions and millions, but within subcultures, subcommunities, they become ways for people who may not have a voice, who may not be seen, to have that opportunity to tell their story and to get response, at least through the net.
I don't want to be a Pollyanna about online communication. There are obviously things that can and do go wrong. People can't read sarcasm very well, right? If there's no nonverbals, people can't read what we might call affect, right? How are you feeling as you're saying this? And so there can be maybe more room for misinterpretation than if we were online. I think that especially young people can maybe type just as fast as they can think, whereas with someone like me or someone even older than me, I might be lagging behind a little bit in my thought processes and my typing capabilities, and so that also could translate into kind of an awkward exchange online, whereas in face-to-face I might be able to overcome that sort of thing. So I do think, things like emotions or intent can be a problem when one communicates online, and we should be really conscious of that, of how we might come across. And then another huge thing is you feel anonymous when it's you and your computer or your phone or whatever device you're using, and so you might say things that you later regret. And so I think sometimes we're tempted to kind of really let it out, which can be both a good thing and a not so good thing. And online, even though we know we're not anonymous, it feels more anonymous, and you might feel more bold and able to kind of take a risky communication exchange, and kind of pursue that than you might in person.
There was a piece by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker a year ago in the fall 2010, that wrote about, quote unquote, the Twitter revolution, ? And what the thesis of his article, which has been confirmed in other things I've read about marketing on the internet, using the internet, social media for marketing, is that URL works best with IRL, that is, in real life. That the way the Arab Spring happened, and the way what happened in Chile or the UK student protests of hundreds of thousands of people happened, is that it wasn't just the social media itself, it was the IRL in real life connections that people had. So what you had in Tunisia or Yemen or Egypt is that young people are hanging around, they don't have jobs, they have a culture with each other. Life is with people, which is an old Jewish, Yiddish proverb, a Yiddish saying, a maxim, life is with people, that when movements, social movements happen, there is a culture that exists before that, where people have bonds of friendship, have a rhythm of time and space together. That then becomes the basis, the fabric upon which the social media can extend that, right? So that in Yemen you can have, or Tunisia, you can have information spreading that the state-controlled media would never have allowed. And we see what happened. And those sparks spread around the world. Right? So it's a question of balance between the social media, the internet, the atomization that can create, where we're all consuming it individually, versus what are the ways in which we perhaps can create real person-to-person social networks that will complement, so that it's not one or the other. Around the world, as we know, with the Arab Spring, Facebook and other vehicles of social media were instrumental, could not have happened. That's true in Iran, what happened several years ago. And I know in China, all forms of social media and convergence media, Facebook, cell phones, texting, have been important vehicles for young workers in huge cities of factories to promote solidarity, resistance, a worker consciousness that can spread around the country of workers protesting in factories and beyond. So in those countries where there's already a critical consciousness, social media can be an important force.
I would say on the whole, and there are multiple things to consider on every level, but on the whole, on balance, when you weigh the positives and the negatives, I think in general it's a positive role in young people's lives. And I do think what it can do is kind of capitalize on our usual tendencies that have been around for as long as we have, to connect with each other, to forge and maintain relationships that are important to us, to feel supported, to express ourselves, to participate in community, level engagement, whether it's about politics or social issues or, some kind of academic function if you're in school. So for me, on balance, it's really a positive means of expressing and maintaining connection.
Thanks to Professor Sachs and Professor Shar for discussing these issues with us. And that's it for us tonight. If you would like to learn more about the show, how to get involved, or how to donate money, please visit our website at www.riverwolfproductions.org/studentnews. Until next time, I'm Giovanna Robinson-Heides.
And I'm Joshua Wolfson. Stay strong and stay proud. Have a good evening. See you next time. Good night.